One basic bracelet, two ways to wear it. So gather up your favorite cabochons and gemstones, crystals and pearls. We're making elegant embellished wire bracelets today in Jewel School. Hi, welcome to Jewel School. I'm Cougar Armstrong, and I'd like to invite you into my very first advanced wire jewelry making class. You all know how much I love cut stones. Well, today I'm going to show you how you can use your faceted gemstones in some really beautiful and elegant wire jewelry bracelet designs. I'll show you how to twist and form wire into a basic chevron bracelet and then embellish it in two different ways. We'll set a high dome cabochon to make this Victorian bangle and incorporate crystals and pearls to create my Anything Cocktail Bracelet. Now, to be able to make these really elegant bracelets, you're going to need more than just the basic 4 tools. But as advanced students, and this is an advanced lesson, I'm sure you already have most of these tools. Now is a great opportunity to get them out and use them. Now, as you know, the basic 4 include a good set of flat nose pliers, round nose pliers, and as this is an advanced tape, you probably already have yours marked or scored. Of course, we do need wire cutters. For chain nose pliers today, I'm going to be using 2 different sizes. One of them is the type that you would more than likely use when you're going to be making the pulls of wire on top of a cabochon. They have more of a short, more blunt tip. Now, I'm also going to be using a very, very thin, fine pair, often called needle nose, of chain nose pliers. And you probably realize we're going to be using these to make very tiny, tight rosette embellishments. I do have another backup pair of chain nose here, which you probably have as well. Now, in addition to these regular tools, I'm going to be adding today a pair of split ring openers. Now, believe it or not, this is the only procedure I use this one tool for. If you have it, great. If not, I'm going to show you how to do the same step without having that tool. Now, I do have an optional use here for 3 tools, of which you may have all or one. So I'm going to be talking about and showing you how to employ your 3-step loopers, your 6-step rounds, you know I love this tool, and the larger pair of double barrel bail pliers. Now, in addition to that, you're going to get to use your ring mandrel, and just for shaping purposes, you probably could use a ring stick as well. Of course, wherever the mandrel travels, so goes the mallet. We may need this, we may not, depends on, you know, if I mess up. We also will need our automatic wire twister, otherwise known as a drill. I also have something different here today. Many of you in live classes have seen me with this same knife. I've had the same one for many, many years. It is so dull, okay, that you can't even cut cheese with it. It kind of breaks off. But I also have a way that you can use a plastic knife. I'm going to be telling you about a new tape today. As an advanced student now, you need to know all the options. As usual, we will be using an ultrafine point marker, as well as the handy pin vise, because you never know when you need to get twisted. And besides our ruler, which is a necessity, we're also going to be using a cloth measuring tape today as I explain my formulas. Piece of t-shirt, a polishing cloth to protect your fingers. You are advanced, you know how to straighten wire. And I have a couple of extra shaping items today. This is the wooden bracelet mandrel. Depends on what shape you want to make your bracelets. My favorite bracelet mandrel, we'll talk about using found items. And to protect my eyes as well as to be able to see tiny details, I have my pair of magnifiers ready, as well as my favorite optivisors with the 1.75 lens. Now, of course, these are wire projects, so we're going to be using a variety of different gauges and shapes of wire today, which I'll explain with each project. And of course, the pretties. Look at this. I have some really wonderful, tiny, small silver beads here and some cut stones. I also have some gemstone cabochons and some snap sets with some cut stones. as well as regular embellishment stones, which to me would include freshwater pearls and small tiny crystals. And this way cool little spoon, look at that. Isn't that great? Another found item with a perfect use. Okay, so are you ready? Awesome. Let's get twisted making bracelets. Now, this first project I call the basic Chevron bracelet. Now, chevron is made with the letter V kind of spread out, and if we put two of them together, we have this wonderful opening. And the whole idea behind this is so that we can fill that space with a variety of different toppings. So this first project today, I'm going to teach you how to make this bracelet, and then we're going to take it into ta-da! This is actually the beginning of the Victorian bracelet. So this is our first project, and I've already cut my wires and twisted them. So let's get started making the chevron bracelet. Okay, first thing, I need to see what I'm doing, and you need to as well, and to protect your eyes. And you'll notice that I have cut all of my wires to formula length, okay? And I have twisted two of them. Now, the formula for this is wrist plus ½ an inch. So if I were to measure my wrist or somebody else's, I would measure, oh, let me get this out of the way first. Okay, I would measure around my wrist right over this bone, right here. Okay, right over that little bone. And I'm just going to put this around lightly, okay? Ladies, this is not like you're going to buy a pair of jeans that you want to fit into one day. This is an honest measurement. Okay, I am 6 7/8, almost 6 3/4. So let's say that my wrist is 6 3/4. Therefore, if I add ½ an inch, my construction formula is going to be 7 1/4 inches long. So I would make all of my construction wires 7 1/4 inches long. You will need 8 to 10 construction wires, and today I'm going to be using a 21 gauge square half hard wire. And let's review how to twist here. The nice part about this is I'm going to teach you how to make one of my signature techniques, and that is a herringbone design. Now, a herringbone design goes well with the chevron because it is a series of V's, okay? The V's that go bup, 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 or bup, 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 like that. They're all V's. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our automatic wire twister or drill. I'm going to open the chuck and insert this 21 gauge square half hard wire, no more than 1/8 of an inch. It's 2 little marks on your ruler. Tighten it. And I'm going to use my flat nose pliers at the opposite end. I'm going to hold like this, not like this, about 2/3 of the way into my plier, not inserting the wire any more than 2/3 of an inch. And I'm going to just hold this taut and hit the button. When it has the type of bead that I like on it, I'll release, open it up. And if I hit my drill to go in reverse mode, which right here, okay, I have a button. And if I push it, I'm now in reverse mode. I'm going to take the second wire and repeat the same twisting procedure. Now, if we take the one wire that I did in forward and place it next to the other wire I did in reverse, okay, you can see this wonderful herringbone V pattern. Now that you know how to do the herringbone, I will tell you that one thing we're going to do with every single bracelet that we ever make in wire is to put at least one single twisted wire on each edge of the construction wires. This is because, as you can see, the wraps that we're going to make to hold this together will not slide on a twisted wire. However, if you put them on plain wires without being twisted, often with years of wonderful, I love it, wearing use, the wraps will become loose and they will slip and slide, whereas on twisted wire, they will not. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to compose and make our bundle. In order to do that, besides the wire, I'm also going to need tape. I told you earlier today I was going to talk to you about a new kind of tape. We've used painter's tape, we've used quilter's tape, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about stencil tape. One of my students came to take a course with me at the JSI here at JTV a couple of weeks ago, and she brought this new paper tape called stencil tape. Well, it's new to me. It's probably been around forever, but it's wonderful because it's not as thin as paper masking tape, but it is a paper tape. It has a terrific adhesive that does not leave residue on my wire. It has a really nice width, so it's kind of easy to just tear it in half. What you're going to do is you're going to choose your favorite tape, and sometimes you might switch like I do, and you're going to prepare 2 pieces, no more than 3, because you should know what you're doing by now. So prepare 2 pieces about 1.5 inches to 1.75 inches long. And then you're going to take your herringbone design and place them on either side of your plain wires. Now it's up to you if you want your V's to run in one direction or one up and one down on each side. And you'll notice here that my wires, my twisted wires, are just a hair longer. Well, if you followed my instructions and you read your directions first, you'll notice that these are 1/4 inch longer than my regular wires because I need to pull those to make the lovely chevron that we have on our bracelet. And in order to make my clasp attachments long enough, I had to add additional wire here because that chevron doesn't take up much, but it will take up some of the overall length of the bracelet. Okay, so after we have this about right, try to get one end as flush as possible, of the center wires, that is. And then you're going to tape near both ends. Remember that you have to see your shortest wire. Okay, so the bundle is done. Let's go ahead and measure. And as normal, you should have your ruler so that the inches are facing you. Nothing has changed, we've just moved along. I'm going to make sure that the shortest end of my wire is at the number 0, which is why we had to see the shortest wire end. And I'm going to measure in 1/2 inch and mark across my bundle, which happens to be right at the edge of my tape. That's good, I don't have to move the tape. Okay, and rotate this like a propeller, so I'm still looking at the back, which is now where my marks are. And again, I'm going to measure in from the shortest wire at the other end, 1/2 inch, and make a mark across my bundle. Now I'm going to measure the distance to find the exact center between those 2 marks. And the really cool thing about this is, if you're not real good with fractions, you don't have to be. Watch this. Okay, I'm showing 6 and a little bit over 6.5. So what I'm going to do down here where that 6.5 is, I'm simply going to slide this down so that I'm splitting the difference. And now there's a little bit up there and there's a little bit here, and there I go. My center is still at 3.25. Now your center is going to be the center of whatever your wrist plus 1/2 inch is. Okay, now to make the opening for the chevron, okay, as you can see, I have a couple of wraps here that I've made. Okay, in order to do that, I'm going to have to measure 1 1/8 inch on each side of the center. So let's take the mark we made at the center, put it on any whole number. I'm just going to use the number 3 because it's easy. And I'm going to measure down 1 full inch plus 1/8, which is 2 little marks on this ruler, on each side of that 3. All right, there we go. Okay, so my wrap wires, by the way, I have cut 4 of them as in your written directions. Each of mine are 5.5 inches long, and I'm now going to begin wrapping my bracelet bundle. I'm going to begin at one end on the mark and work toward the center. I need a minimum of 5 wraps. I might put on 6 or 7, your choice. And then I'm going to move to the second wrap and again work back toward the first one the same as we did in the other Bracelets DVD. I need to leave the middle completely open because that's where I'm going to put my beautiful cabochon. And then on the other side of the opening, I'm going to work away from the center, and then down at the further end, I'm going to work back toward the center. So if you look at your diagram that comes in your written directions, you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, I'm just going to review really quickly because this is advanced, okay? But it's, you know, if you're not quite ready for it, this is a really good thing to work up to. Okay, using my flat nose pliers at the end of my square wire. Okay, always using the same gauge of wire for the wrap wires as I did for the main construction. Okay, I'm going to fold this over very tightly on the edge of my tool. I'm going to offset it to my left because I never want to cover up my hook. Okay, it's always angled in the direction I'm coming from. This is the back. I'm going to hit it here, come to the top and support it. So I'm keeping my whole bundle together. Index finger, it's the only time it gets to touch this wire. Notice I'm down here at the base. I'm going to simply bend that wire 90 degrees, in essence over the jaw of my plier, as well as over the side of my bundle. I'm going to rotate this again like a propeller. So I'm still seeing the back. I'm going to hold my bundle with my flat nose pliers anywhere on the right that's comfortable because I'm right-handed. Left-handed people, simply reverse what I'm doing. There really is no other way. It's pretty easy. Okay, and then I'm going to use my thumb down here at the bottom to tell the wire where to go. And I'm going to hit it at the bottom because remember that's the only place this wire is going to bend is at the corner. And then come to the very top of my bundle, which is in essence at the top of my bracelet. I'm a little high, there we go, okay? You use your thumb to push this wire 90 degrees over the top. So you're making a nice 90-degree angle every single time. And I'm going to continue, okay, like this and repeat. And I'll repeat the mantra one more time. And right now you'll see on the front, I have 2 wraps to show. 1, 2. Now continue wrapping until you have 6 wraps to show. Okay, when you begin and end these wraps, I'm going to show you something that you're going to find very cool, I hope, that you can use to end your wires many, many different times. I'm going to grab onto the end that I just cut with either my chain nose or my flat nose pliers. I'm going to grip the end and I'm going to roll my tool while pulling. So if you picture a flat, like a board, okay? And then as you hit them with your pliers, you're going to be mashing that end and then curving it, all right? So I'm going to, and this happens really fast. Okay, grab onto just the end, roll my tool, and curve the wire. What I've done is I've taken the burr off that wire and I've given the end a little direction. I don't know if you can see that or not, maybe, maybe not. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, and now if I just hit that at the bottom corner with my tool, ta-da, that is smooth as silk. All right, so I'm going to go back and do that to the first one. All right, there you go. You can employ that technique on all of your wire jewelry if you desire to get rid of the rough ends. Okay, so I have to make sure that I'm going to do 6 wraps at the other end, but remember, you have to proceed from one toward the other. You can't just do the ends and forget the middle. And then I'm going to do the second one, third one, and on to the end here. So go ahead and get your wrap wire, get your things together, and let's go ahead and wrap this bracelet bundle together. There we go, we are wrapped. Okay, so go ahead and remove the tape from your bracelet. We can save it for later. And check it out, pretty cool. All right, so let me show you how to finish the ends of this bracelet, and then we're going to make a really cool clasp and attach it. Now, as I mentioned before, okay, I still have some tape. Let me get that tape off there. Okay, we needed a minimum of 1/2 inch on the extra sides. However, we are going to be pulling our chevron. So I'm going to pull the chevron first so you can see how little it really does pull on these wires. And as I mentioned before, if you have a pair of split ring openers, okay, you can use these. If you don't have split ring openers, it's okay, you can use your hands. So if I were to use my hands on this, which is going to give me a more gentle curve, not quite as pointed as this bracelet here, okay? Actually, this one was done with these split ring openers. And you can see the back of this one is not as sharp. I actually use my fingers on this. Okay, so if you're going to be using your fingers, simply put them on each side of the twisted wire, okay, +1, so you're going to be actually pulling 6 wires, 3 on each side. Use your finger and just pull them apart, okay? If you want that really nice crisp angle, I'm going to use the split ring openers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this on the back side, so that the flat part of the split ring opener is against the front, because I don't want to mar the wire. I'm going to come in here about 3. So I am on my center. I have my split ring opener positioned, okay? And I'm simply going to support my bracelet by holding the other side and pull straight out. Okay? Now, repeat on the other side. Okay, so now we have something that kind of looks like this, okay, which is going to give me an inspiration for a necklace I'm going to show you a little bit later on. Okay, well, let's put it like this so you can, if you flip back, you can say, oh yeah, that's what she was doing. Okay, but you see the center isn't really going to matter because I'm going to take my cutters and I'm going to cut it. Yeah, it's okay. So we have 3 wires pulled on each side, and now I'm going to cut the middle. Didn't fall apart, it's all good. And we already know that we need to hold our wire wherever we want to make a shape. So I'm going to use my flat nose pliers and place them directly over and parallel to the wrap right there, okay? I'm going to be able to grab these center wires that I had cut and bend them toward the back or the inside of the bracelet, 90 degrees straight over the side of the plier jaw. Okay, let's do the same thing on the other side. All right, and guess what? Now I can go back and I can finish pulling my chevron where it needs to be. Use my hands to shape my bracelet, and there we go. All right, that's how you do the chevron. Now, what am I going to do with all these ends? Well, I'm going to use the same method to finish off the ends of the center wires inside the chevron as I am going to use on the ends. So, you'll be using this several different ways today. Afterwards, of course, you'll know what you're doing. And then you can use this to end large groups of wires on anything. Now I'm going to use my thumb, because I want a soft angle, to press these wires down toward the bracelet, but notice that I have left enough room in there so I can get cutters in there, okay, right in here. So let me use my cutters, and remembering everything I'm going to keep is from the flat side on. I'm going to place them on these extra wires so that they are about 1 wire width longer than the wraps that they're going over. And repeat that on the other side, remembering to use my thumb to make a soft angle. Get my cutters in there and cut these so that they are about 1 wire width longer than the wraps they're going over. Okay, and the fun part now comes into using chain nose pliers. You can either use your blunt nose or you can use your extra pair. I'm going to use my extra pair. And the idea is, remember what we just did to get rid of the sharp ends on the other side? Okay, I'm going to do this with my chain nose pliers on all of these wires at once. So you want to use a very smooth movement. And you'll notice I'm going to, well, you probably can't see, but I will tell you that I am putting these ends of wires into my tool probably no more than a millimeter, maybe 1.5. And notice that my tool looks a little bit funny because it's angled, so I'm keeping the bottom jaw of my tool parallel with my wraps underneath. And I'm going to just roll my hand several times. And what I'm doing is I'm deburring these wires and shaping them with a slight curve at the end. Okay, so can we see that right there? Okay, and this only goes to prove another point. The wire is only going to bend at the corner. So after I have this shaped, I've deburred it, I've told the wire where I want it to go. Now I'm going to hit it on the corner, which is the only place it's going to bend, with my flat nose pliers. And they go directly down, look at that. Okay, so I'm making a very nice smooth edge with all of these wires at once. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. There we go, just to flex it. You can run your hand over that, smooth as silk. Okay, go ahead and repeat that on the opposite side of the chevron. Okay, so now you have finished that part, and it was a lot easier than you thought. Okay, let's go back to the two ends. And we know that I need my long wires on the outer edges to make my connections. All right, so same procedure as I used on the center wires of the chevron, I'm going to now employ on each outer end. All right, so we have now basically finished our bracelet, except for the connection ends and the clasp. Let's clean up your workspace a little bit, and if you have read your directions earlier, like I'd asked you to, please get out either your 18, 19, or 20 gauge round dead soft wire. Now, if you're using a 16 or an 18, yes, I said 16, or a 19 gauge, be sure you use a dead soft. If you're using a 20 gauge, you can have to kind of use a half hard because otherwise it won't hold up. All right, so I have straightened my wire, and I'm actually using an 18 gauge round dead soft. I'm going to double cut the end, meaning I don't want to have any burrs on my end. I'm going to measure down and cut one length that is 3 inches long. This will be for my hook. And I'm going to have to double cut this first end again. One of those little finishing touches where your work should be looking more professional. Okay. And my second piece I'm going to cut is 2 inches long. So the hook and eye clasp is basically 3 inches for the hook and 2 inches for the eye. Okay, and here we get to use some of our fun alternative tools. Okay, for the 2-inch piece, which is going to be the eye, okay, let's look at this. Okay, you see this hook and eye right here? It kind of looks like a stirrup, and then it's got that really great hook. Okay, to get that stirrup look, I like to use either my double barrel bail pliers or my 6-step rounds. If I'm going to use my double barrel, the larger section, I'm going to make this on the larger barrel of the pliers. If I'm going to be using my 6-step rounds, I'm going to make this on the second largest barrel of the 6 steps. Okay, this is really cool and easy because you don't really have to find and measure the center. You just kind of put it on there and then bend your wires together, okay? As you are bending these and making a U, all right, let's do that. I'm gonna mess up on purpose. There you go. You see how one wire is longer than the other? Well, that's pretty easy to remedy. Considering this is round, just bend the other wire toward it, bend the shorter one back, the longer one, there we go. And we have a perfect U. Just another little tip. Okay, thinking now that the eyes that you're going to make on this clasp eye are going to have to be large enough to contain 2 21 gauge round twisted wires at the same time. So I'm going to look at my round nose pliers, and most of you have my book or you have followed me in the past and you've marked or scored your pliers, and I'm going to find the size that I think is the perfect size to make my loops with, which in my case down here is going to be, oh, probably my second mark from the bottom. And remember to make a nice round and not the letter P. We put the end in so that you cannot feel it, and then simply roll the tool. When you can't go any further, release your grip, spin back around, tighten up again to grab more wire, and continue to roll. And you'll have a nice little perfect circle just like that, okay? And you're going to repeat this on the other side. So we have something that kind of looks like this, okay? And then to get that really cute shape, we're going to go back to either the double barrel bales or the 6-step rounds, and I'm going to put the center part of this back on the smaller jar, like this. I'm just going to push the little legs toward one another. Okay, and there is that cute little shape that we all love. And now for the hook, what I'm going to use are my round nose pliers. Now you don't want really skinny, pointy round nose because they won't be able to handle the wire. And to find the center of your wire, which is actually at 1.5 inches, it's just so much easier to place the wire in the jaw of your tool and then place it on any hole number and look on each side. So I almost have this. I have to move it down just a hair in that direction. There you go. Makes measuring easy. Okay, now to make this hook, you'll notice that my wire is near the very tip. This is because I have to press on both sides near the tip to get that really tight U that I desire. So let's press on this like here. And, okay, I've got this really tight, tight, tight U. Okay? Now I'm going to keyhole this. For those of you who have followed me in the past, you know what to do. For those who don't, now that we know how to grip our tools and let go and keep them in the same place, which is why we have marks. Okay, I'm going to put my tool in here. I can spin this easy. I'm going to spin it around until I can't go any further because the tool's in the way. So I'm going to tighten up and dip. Now I actually have a drunken letter P. Okay, I'm going to go into the other side of the P, the same location, and bend it down. Now it's a little bit more balanced. Okay, let me fix what that is. And when we're done, okay, it kind of resembles the top of an old-fashioned keyhole, or better yet, a cotter pin. So maybe I should call it the cotter pinning instead of keyholing, but you get the idea. Okay, so that actually makes the lock of our hook, okay? And I'm going to use my 3-step rounds now. Again, you can use your regular round nose pliers, or you can use the second barrel on these 6-step rounds. But I like the 3-step loopers for this. I'll show you why. Okay, I'm going to place my lock just inside so that the end of the lock is just sticking out. Okay, I'm going to just roll the tool until the lock meets the other side. And then, this is way cool. I'm just going to loosen my grip, spin my tool around, and look, I have a perfect shelf that I can just bend my legs slightly over. Isn't that cool? Okay? All right, so at this point, we want to make sure that the legs on both sides of our hook are the same length, which I'm absolutely amazed mine actually are. If yours are not, just remember, don't cut them any shorter than they are, but they do need to be at the same length. Okay, and to finish the hook, I'm going to go in between with my flat nose pliers. I'm going to go between the legs and up to where I put that little bend in. Okay, I'm going to hold my pliers right there, holding that wire, and I'm going to bend this leg, the one I'm holding, out 90 degrees. Okay? Now let's repeat that on the other side. Okay, so you kind of should look maybe something like this. One of my legs is kind of crooked. I'm going to go back in and take that out while I make the new one. There we go. And again, I have to make the same size eyes at the bottom of this that I did on the eye clasp. So choosing the same step that I have scored on my round nose pliers, I'm going to go below and I'm going to simply roll these in. Actually, that's a little bit too much. Let me go up one more notch. Yeah. Okay, and then roll your tool. When you run out, go back, grab a little more, close it up, and we're kind of starting to look like an anchor here. Okay, repeat the same process at the same zone on the other side. Okay, and he's gonna look a little bit like this. Okay, see how it's kind of funky, wonky, all right? That's perfectly normal. I don't wanna mess around with my tools because I know how to fix that, which is going to work harden it slightly, which is something that's good. Using my flat nose pliers, I'm going to simply make sure that my legs are on the same plane. And it looks like my legs, the eyes on them, are a little bit too close together. Now to change that, I'm simply going to use my round nose pliers and watch this, okay? I can go into one eye and simply roll my tool. Look at that. Okay, the other side, and let's roll the tool. There we go. So now it kind of looks like an anchor. So my hook and my eye work. Let's go ahead and make the connections on our bundle, add the hook and eye, do the shaping, and it will be finished. Okay, now, to make the connection loops, you're going to love this, really. This is pretty cool. So I'm going to bend both of the ends, working with each pair of wires as though it were one wire toward the front of the bracelet. Okay, I'm going to make the one that's farthest away from me, probably another 10 degrees lower on an angle. I'm going to repeat this on both ends. Okay, so now I'm going to make the connection loops that are going to go into the loops on the hook and eye. And I'm going to choose a place on my round nose pliers. And seriously, guys, making bracelets similar to this many, many years ago is when and why I started scoring my pliers, okay? These are the same scores I've used for almost 20 years. Okay, so I'm going to take this pair of wires, make believe that it's one. I'm going to place this in my tool. Okay, I'm just going to roll my tool. Okay, now when I just roll my tool, you see I form that way cool open eye, all right? Let's do this again on the other side. Keeping your round nose pliers on the ends of the wire in the exact same position. And because you're going to find, oh no, the other piece is like so close it's gonna run into it. Well, just keep rolling and then simply bend your arm down like that, okay? And when you release, you have the same shape. However, it's not exactly where you want it to be, so use your flat nose pliers and move the entire unit where you want it to be. That's all there is to it. Now, besides making that in such an easy way, you're gonna love the way these things close. Okay, go ahead and repeat the procedure on the other two ends on the opposite side of the bracelet. Okay, so you got 4 eyes, let's fill them up. Okay, let's take the eye clasp first, and you're going to place it inside those two. It should swing freely. If it doesn't swing freely, either bring your legs together or bring your connections together or spread them apart, wherever it has to go in order to make it swing freely, okay? A good working clasp is very important to any bracelet. And I'm going to show you a way that people who live alone or with arthritis can put these bracelets off and on by themselves. Okay, so to close this, remember I said you were gonna love it? Well, think about this. Right now, we are near the end of this project. Those wires have been twisted, worked, bent, and if they're gonna break, it's gonna be now. Well, if we don't move them a lot, chances are they're gonna last for a very long time. So we just bent them forward, rolled them back, and now I'm going to close them. Using my chain nose pliers, and you'll notice I have my pointy needle nose, really fine tips. Of course, none of the tools have teeth. And I'm going to go back on my connection zone here, just about a third to a half of the way. And watch this, I'm just going to roll the tool. That's it, and it closes it right up. Okay, do that on both of your connections here. Okay, if they're not quite level, same thing, just use your flat nose pliers to put them on the same plane. Done, cool, was easy, huh? All right, so now we come to the hook. And I do have to tell you that I have seriously made and sold at least 1,000 bracelets in any design over the years. And I have only ever had one person ask me to reverse the hook. So if you look at the bracelet that we're going to end up making up, you'll see the hook and eye. You'll notice that the hook is on the outside, okay? Watch this. If I open this up, and I'm going to, and I'm right-handed, all right? I'm gonna put this on my right hand with my left hand. I'm going to put the hook at the top. Okay, so now with the hook at the top, I'm actually using gravity to keep it down. And I got the little eye over here, so watch this. I'm going to use my index finger and my thumb and simply squish the bracelet and use my index finger to flip the eye, which puts it right over the top. And this way you can take this bracelet off and on with one hand. Also notice that our bracelets are oval. Therefore, if we are working on computers and things, we don't want a hook to dig into our skin, so we want it on the outside. Something else too is that a lot of people say, oh, well, what about something really loose like crochet? Well, you know what? Anything's gonna get stuck in crochet. So just be careful what you're wearing with what. So I'm going to, for that reason, put my hook on my eyes so that it is facing the outside or front of my bracelet. You can always change it later. And then I'm going to simply close that on. Make sure my connections are in the same plane. And that it's swinging freely. Now we get to shape it. So to shape something like this, I'm going to use my favorite bracelet mandrel, one I've been using forever and ever, and this is an oversized medicine bottle. Okay, being this hard but flexible plastic, I'm going to use it mainly toward the end, which is the strongest area. And I'm going to take the end of my bracelet with the outside facing out. The back side is going to go against the mandrel. I'm going to hold the end of my bracelet with my thumb on the wrap. Going to grab onto the other side, and I'm going to simply bend the bracelet, okay, as far as I can go. Now, if I stop, I have this nice little arch thing. So I'm going to go to the other side and repeat the procedure, holding the side, grabbing onto the wrap on the other side of the chevron, and bend the bracelet. All right, so now I have like this little rainbow arch thing going on. So I'm going to now reverse the first thing I taught you. So I taught you, first off, how to straighten your wire, correct? Now we're going to reverse the procedure and put the curve into the wire. Okay, so beginning at the one end, I'm going to do about every 1/4 of an inch all the way up to the wrap. Makes a big difference. Look at the difference in that shaping, okay? And let's do this on the other side. It's starting to look like a bracelet now. And at this point, I can connect it without pulling anything. Now, after I have it connected, you'll notice that I can't make this curve happen over here. So let's use a tool to help us. Using my flat nose pliers, actually this side isn't that bad. I'm just gonna get it right. I'm going to go in here to the side that's kind of straight, and holding onto those wraps, I'm just gonna give it a tweak. There we go. Makes all the difference in the world. Okay, and then coming up to the chevron, same thing here. I need this to curve, so I'm going to use my tool to put that curve into it. Okay. Shaping of the chevron is easy. Simply put it back onto your really cool, expensive mandrel, and use your fingers to bounce on either side on the wraps. So we put a slight curve in that, not a major curve, perfect, just a slight one. Okay, and then just go ahead and clasp it together. And guess what? Your Chevron basic bangle is finished. We are now going to learn how to do several, basically two, and I'm going to hint around and tell you how to make others. Embellishments for the top. So this is your basic. We're going to dress it up so you can wear it many different ways. Okay, so I am now ready to let you in on my secret, how to create a Victorian topping using a high dome cabochon for your chevron bracelet. There are many, many people who've tried to figure this out from my book, and I'm only now deciding to share it with you. So, usually I will choose the same gauge wire that I have already used for the bracelet to make the embellishment or the topping. And what I have done already, and you should have if you've read the directions, is I have cut 6 pieces of my wire, each 4.5 inches long, and I have cut 4 pieces of the 21 gauge wire, each 5 inches long. I'm going to take the 5-inch long pieces and center them between 3 each of the 4.5-inch pieces. And then I'm going to just tap on this and get it down to where I have about 1/4 inch over on each side. Okay, this one's not rocket science, so that's good. And now that I have my bundle, I'm going to use the tape we've already had today, and I'm going to tape my bundle near each edge. Okay, so now we're going to measure our bundle. And if we look at the bracelet, we'll see that I am using a high dome cab, as I'd mentioned, and that this is independently made and then connected to the bracelet. Okay, but the whole trick is, how do we get that arch in there? How do we get that tall stone in there? And part of it is by measuring. Number one, the first thing that we found was that I'm using 2 different lengths of wire. Number 2, the second thing that we're going to find is I'm going to be using formulas totally different from those that you may already be familiar with when making the cabochon or Pharaoh's ring. So getting my marking pen ready, I'm going to line my wire bundle up alongside the 0. And coming down and measuring, we'll see, it might be a little bit over 5. So again, I'm just going to split the difference. Therefore, my center is at 2.5 inches. And now I'm going to slide that center mark to any whole number. As usual, I like to use the number 3. And I'm going to measure and mark 11/16 inch on each side of the center mark. And that is 1 little mark past 5/8 or 3 little marks after the 1/2 inch. Okay, so your bundle should look like this. Now, using the 2 wrap wires that I have cut, which are each 5 inches long. You probably won't need all 5 inches, but if you want your wraps to be perfectly straight, you might need to replace like the first one or something. So I always give you a little more wire if you're making a project for the first time. Now, as the norm, I'm going to use my flat nose pliers. I'm going to make a hook, and I'm going to wrap from this side of center mark toward the end, a minimum of 5 times to show, and from the other side of center mark toward its respective end, a minimum of 5 times to show, which you will also see in the diagram in your written instructions. Okay, now that your bundle has been wrapped, go ahead and remove both pieces of tape, saving them for the next project. We won't need them anymore for this specific embellishment. Okay, so now you're looking at, you say, yeah, I can see the ring, kind of, maybe. The next step is to shape this on the ring mandrel. Now we're going to want to shape this to get the initial U into the center of it on a smaller scale because we have 10 21 gauge half hard wires here. That's a lot of spring when you put it together. Therefore, I'm going to shape this about 3 times smaller than my desired size would be. So if I wanted to make this around a size 9, because I like that arch, I'm probably going to shape this around a 6.5 or a 7. So I'm going to take the back of my bundle, where the bindings end and where the center mark is. I'm going to place that mark against the mandrel, just above the size 9. Now I'm going to hold this down with my finger. If I don't keep pressure on this wire and it decides to go up, it's going to make a cone head. All right, very difficult to get out. I'm going to press equally on each wrap at the same time. And now I'm going to take this off the mandrel. We hope that the wraps are apart exactly from one another. Yay, check that out. They're exactly across. And yes, the next step is kind of like making that ring. So what I'm going to use here is, I have my 2 weapons of destruction. Really not. I mean, you can see this knife is not even sharp enough to cut cheese anymore, as I mentioned. Now, I do have this plastic knife from my dinner last night. Well, I didn't use it, but let's see if this works. Okay, the idea is to go in here between this top wire in the bundle and the next one, and to see if I can get that separated. Well, check it out. Okay, I need to go all the way in, and then I have to bend this all up at once, like this. That's where they might have a problem. Okay, and then lay it down over. Okay, so we have something like that, and it kind of looks like a little teardrop thing there. Okay, don't worry about that. Now, you see how it's laying completely down and flat, except it's up above the wraps because I had to go over that wrap? We're going to flip this over and do the exact same process on the opposite side. Make sure you only get 1 ring. This actually works pretty well. Okay, and the item that you use, which actually could be a hotel room key, it could be an old credit card or one of the ones they send you in the mail for fake, a thin, really thin steel ruler. The idea is they have to be strong enough, though, so you can lay the whole thing down like that, all right? You have to have it down flat. And now we're going to do a second ring on each side. All right, so now I have done 2 on each side, and we can see, oh, it's looking like a ring. Maybe she's mistaken. No, but I am going to drop this on the mandrel. I'm going to use my mallet because the only place that I need to round this, if we look at this, okay, you see how these fingers are sticking out? You see that wrap right there, and it's like they're sticking out like this? Okay, they kind of need to be rounded. So I'm only going to hit them on the wraps. In order to do that, I'm going to hold my mandrel so I don't kill myself. And I'm going to support it with my finger on the other side. Please be careful. You can take the end of your finger off with one of these. I'm here to tell you it's not fun. It takes a long time to heal. So I'm going to hit only on this wrap with this mallet. All right, and you can also see already, see the difference? See how this one's kind of rounded now and this one's standing up? There we go. So I'm going to take this off and flip it over, because I know what side my hand likes to work on. Again, I'm going to support the ring on the mandrel, and I'm going to use the mallet to round those wraps. There we go. And the wires are actually starting to interlock a little bit. Notice that the ring kind of got bigger. Don't worry about size right now. Okay, so now take this off, and guess what? You won't need these again for this project. Okay, So now I have to make an envelope. In order to make an envelope out of the 4 rings that we pulled previously, I need to get the side wires out of the way so I can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to use my flat nose pliers to hold my wraps exactly where they are, and then use my finger to bend these wires slightly out to where they were. You see? But I don't want to make a hard angle because I need them to slide through those wraps again. Repeat this on the other side. Now you see I can work in the middle. And I think you're going to see the envelope I'm talking about. Between the first ring we pulled over, which is the outer or larger ring, and the second ring, which is the inner or smaller ring, we're going to make an envelope that we're going to be able to slide the cabochon into. So let me get one of these. There we go. Okay. By the way, this is an 18 by 13 high domed corundum cab. Okay, in other words, lab sapphire. Now, in order to get that stone in here, well, obviously the front is curved, and that's going to go with the curve of the stone, but the back is curved, and the back of my stone is flat. So I have to make a flat back. To do that, I'm going to use my flat nose pliers, and watch where I place them. This is so important. Okay, and get this where you can see it. I'm going to take my flat nose pliers. I'm going to place them on the inside or smaller ring, actually the second one we pulled over, so that the bottom jaw of the plier looks like it would line directly up parallel to the wraps that are next to it. You see that? Okay. Now I'm going to support this by holding the wrap, and most important, I'm just going to make a slight roll of my tool. Now, if you look at that, it really doesn't look like much, okay? It doesn't look like I did much to this at all, but it started. Okay, now let's do the same thing on the same wire on the other side. So lining this up so that the bottom jaw of the plier is lined up parallel with the wraps underneath it, and then supporting it by holding onto the wrap. I'm going to give a slight turn of the tool. Okay, now, if we look at that shape, you can kind of see that it's really not like straight, right in here. But it's just enough to give it a start. Now what I'm going to do is take my flat nose pliers and put it sideways using the entire length between the 2 points I just bent. Just like this. See the difference? Okay, now, you see how easy that is? You're going to now repeat that same procedure on the opposite side of the ring thing. All right, so we have the envelope being formed now with a straight side on both and a curved on both. And here is where you're going to take your cabochon and slide it into the envelope. Now, because this is a high dome cabochon, what's going to happen is the second wire that we pulled over, or the wire that we just straightened, is going to push back. Remember I said that we just wanted these wires to be at a soft, comfortable angle because they're going to be moving through this component? Well, what you just did is you made a component out of the wraps with the wires. So if we put this in here like this, there we go. After we get this started, we have to start to lock this stone in. Now, as I work, I'm going to be working opposite diagonals, kind of like old-time changing a tire, if you still change a tire. For example, I would do the top right and then the bottom left, then the top left and the bottom right. And as we work this together like this, the stone is going to keep turning until we get locked in and it's centered right in the middle of what you still think is a ring. Okay, so let me convince you that it is otherwise. All right, now the first 4 corners are most of the important lock-ins. And what we're going to do is we're going to work with each pair of wires as though it was one wire to save you some time. So let's begin. Working opposite diagonals, I'm going to take these 2 wires on this side and bend them out to 90 degrees. Notice they are on the same plane as they were. I've just bent them out 90 degrees. And I'm going to go opposite diagonal and take the 2 wires on that side, working them as one, and bend it out 90 degrees on the same plane. Now I have to tell the wire where I want to go. So I'm going to use my chain nose pliers. If you can see this shot right here, you'll notice that the bottom jaw of my plier is about 1 millimeter above the top wire that's going over the stone. Okay? And the reason being, it's the curve of the tool. Okay, if I make a bend and if I want my bend to be on a certain mark, if I make that bend on that mark, it's going to end up below the mark because of the amount of wire that the tool eats up when it rolls over. So I'm going to place this about 1 millimeter above my mark in my head because it's going to take about that much wire to roll this over. All right, and now I'm just going to make one nice smooth move down 90%. And you see, it ends up right over those wires where I wanted it to go. Make sure that the back is headed into the center of the back, a little bit like that. So it looks more like the spokes on a wagon wheel. And we're going to trim these so that they are about 1/8 of an inch longer than the inside of the wire on the back that's on the back of our stone. Okay, so let me cut that, you can see. Okay. And now I have to give it direction. So I'm going to use my chain nose pliers and I'm going to just roll the tool. I don't want to make a fish hook. I want to give the ends of these wires a curved direction. Now what I'm going to do is use my flat nose pliers to put those wires where I want them to be. Okay, let's see if I can do this so you can see what I'm doing. All right, I'm going to place the front of the pliers on the outside front of the wire. I'm going to place the inside of my pliers at the top, right above where the curve is. Now, as I do this, people, I'm not mashing. I'm going to tip, okay? So watch, I'm just going to push these wires like this, okay? And all it did was, my wire was already going on an angle. So for example, if I took this wire here and put a little curve on the end, all right? And then watch this, if I hit it down here, where's that curve gonna go? That curve is gonna still continue to go where I had directed it to go, right? So if I give this wire direction by putting a curve on it there and just kind of push it, it's gonna go in that same curved direction, which is underneath and around the 2 wires that are sandwiching my stone, thus drawing them together, making it tighter around the stone. All right, concept done, let's continue. Now I'm going to go to the opposite diagonal. You still have to continually get that stone in there. And again, do the same procedure. Place your tool so it's about 1 millimeter above. Make your bend, angle it, trim it to about 3/8 of an inch longer than the wire on the inside. Give it that curvy direction with your chain nose pliers. And then tuck it into place with your flats. Ta-da! Awesome. Okay, so I have these 2 corners done. Go ahead and do the next 2 corners and then stop. And I'm going to tell you how we're going to proceed with the rest. Okay, so at this point we have all 4 wires down. We have locked in the corners, and remember I told you before that you were making a component? Well, if you think about what we've just done, the wrap sections from one section to the other, the wires that go on top of and behind the stone on the top and the bottom are actually the first 2 wires in each of the 4 corners. So what you have done is you have created your own component that will slide up and down on what normally would be the shank wraps of a ring. So let me show you now, because now we have to kind of size this thing. All right, after you get the first 4 corners on, you've got that stone locked in. The idea that we were going for here was to allow just enough space between the wraps to get that stone locked in and tight. Because if you looked at this piece right here, you'll notice there's not a lot of room between the stone and the wire. It's really closed up nice, okay? And that's what we're going for right there. So to make sure that that happens, I had to use that smaller number to make our space. Now, however, we need to make this thing big enough so that we can cut it up and put it on our bracelet. And to do that, we're going to drop the ring type creature onto the mantle, and I'm going to slide and work. Okay, you see how I'm sliding and working this until I'm about partway down, and I'm really tight right there. So let's take it out, turn the ring over because it's going to telescope, meaning that you don't have a graduated mantle, so the wires are going to graduate. And I'm going to work this down again. I want to continue until I have this ring at the size 12, okay? So just keep taking it off, flipping it over, taking it off. Oh, I'm almost there, wow. Okay, one more time. And I am, all right. Yep, we're right here to 12 now. Okay, so what I need to do now is mark directly after the wraps on what would be the shank of a ring thing. Okay, marking right there. And marking right here. Okay? Now, the reason I did that is because I don't want to pull any of my future connection wires too tight. That would really change the size of things. So let's just spin this on out. And what I'm going to do now, and what you're going to do is, if you choose, first of all, you can use your pin vise and you can twist some of these wires. However, in the future, never, ever, ever twist the first 4 that we just put across, thinking about the fact that if you twist them, they're not going to have as secure a purchase over the wraps that they need to be. So I don't recommend twisting them. But yeah, if you want to twist these, go ahead, get yourself a pattern. Using a pin vise, this is fine. I'm going to twist a couple here just to remind you what it looks like and how to do so. Inserting the pin vise, doing a little twist. There we go. Of course, if you don't have a pin vise, you can make a similar stylish look by using your flat nose pliers. Takes a little longer. And twisting. So 2 different ways you can make twisted wire. And then following the same procedure as we did before, however, working these each individually, diagonally opposites, I'm going to follow the exact same process of using each of these wires in opposite diagonals to lock the rest of the stone into place. Okay, so follow along with me and then take off on your own. Remembering to keep your eye on the marks we just made on each side so that you do not pull one of these wires through too tightly. Okay, as you can see, I'm down to my last wire, and I hope you caught that last little twist I did, because when you get down to the end and more experience with this, you can simply use your pin vise to twist a wire and then use the pin vise to pull the wire into place. Okay, and if we check both sides, we'll see that I didn't pull my wires out here, I didn't pull my wires out here, so I'm good to go. And you'll see that this is entirely wrapped in. Now, what I've done here is I've just taken my fingernails and pulled these wires out. You don't have to, okay? As though you were making a Pharaoh's ring, you can use zigzags, you can do whatever. However, I like a lot of my stone to actually show. So after you've done this whole thing and you're like, oh yeah, Dale, we know how to make a ring. Really, you don't. Look at that. There is nothing like serious ring about that. Each ring size has its own formula and its own distance between. This is specifically for the bracelet. So what we're going to do now is, get ready, I'm going to cut it. All right, so after all that work, we're going to cut this in the dead center or thereabouts. Yeah, it looks pretty close to me. Ta-da! No panic, no freak. Okay, and just bring these out on the sides. If you bring these down, you'll notice that you're going to still have a slight curve or a slight arch right there, okay? See that right there? Perfect. And that's what we need to go over the top of the bracelet. You see that nice curve? That's where that comes from, is right there. So after I have this out, and I'm gonna spread these wires out a little bit more. Okay, I still have my nice arch, that's good. And I'm going to separate these now, working them in pairs. So if I take two and another pair of two at each of the four corners, I'm making a spider, but he only has 6 legs. I know it's not really a spider, but visualizing helps. There we go. Okay, so now I have a 6-legged buggy thing done in silver and blue, and that's kind of cute. But now I'm going to make this fit into the bracelet. The 2 center wires we can actually bend up and get out of the way. Those are for your style of embellishments later. Yes, there's room for your own style in here. Okay, so let's get those out of the way, and let's try to fit this onto this bracelet. This is the bracelet that we just made out of 21 gauge square wire, and this is 21 gauge here. So we can actually put this in here, but you'll notice I think that's way too big of an opening. So I'm going to make this smaller simply by grabbing the chevron and pushing it together. Okay, like that. What does this look like? Yeah, it's okay, but I really want mine a little bit closer. Let's bring it in just a little bit more. Okay, that makes me happy. Get yours to the point where it makes you happy. No design is set in stone. I'm just going to work hard in this a little bit so it stays right there. Okay, and the next step to getting this to fit is going to involve your pen. You're going to be marking your spider's legs, bending them into place. Okay. So if I put this on here, and I want that to kind of be centered, where my leg wires, I'm going to call them, cross over the frame, I'm going to mark where they're going to be bending over the frame. Just right there. And I'm going to mark on the frame where they're going over it. Okay. I'm going to do this on each leg. Okay, so now I have all of my legs marked. I have my places marked. I'm going to stand this up so that it maybe will work a little bit darker later. And I'm going to use either my chain nose pliers or my flat nose pliers. Most of you know I would use my chains for this because they have a sharp inner edge and a nice gripping power, and they have a nice soft curve on the outer side. So to do that, again, if I want my mark to be exactly where my bend is, I'm going to have to place my tool about 1 millimeter away from my mark, like this, so that when I make my 90-degree bend, I'm right at that mark. Okay, we're gonna do this on each of the 4 legs. Okay, and you are left with a bug with antennas. That's the way it's supposed to look. Okay, we're gonna give this little creature a name one of these days. And now I'm going to place this onto my bracelet where I made the marks, and it should go just like this. Okay, that lines up exactly where I had it. Okay, so the next step is to take my chain nose and flat nose pliers and to put my creature's legs where they need to be. To do that, of course, I already have direction here. Let's increase that direction a little bit. Okay, get that started. Use my flat nose pliers to put the legs where I want them to be permanently. Okay, my other sides are straight through here. Get my antenna out of the way. There's one. There's two. Okay, should kind of look like that. And to finish it off on the back, let's go ahead and trim these. Actually, you know, if they were straight, they'd be easier to trim. But you get so involved with what's going on the front. There we go. So I'm going to trim these off and then use my little chain nose pliers. I'm going to grab the individual ends, roll them to deburr them, give them the shape, and then crimp them into place so that I have no sharp edges. Let's see, I can do this so you can see what I'm doing. Yeah, it's the same as what we did on the back of the bracelet before. All right, yeah, if I do this and work backwards, you can see it. Okay, so this is the same process. And then I'm simply going to use my flat nose pliers to put them in place. And there is a complete connection right there. Okay, so now I'm going to work opposite diagonals. I'm going to do this one, then that one, then that one. Catch up with me, stay with me, or rewind me and do it again, because then we're going to talk about embellishments, and then I'm going to show you some variations of this wonderful design. So on to connecting the rest of the legs. Okay, so now I have all the legs attached. It's beginning to look like my bracelet. Actually, it's pretty darn close. The only thing that we have left to worry about are the two wires on each side on the front that can be used for embellishments. I'm going to use pearls to complete mine, so if you'd like to watch me do that, that's next. Okay, these are large hole freshwater pearls. So I'm going to pick a couple of pearls here. I'm going to put one on my wire. End is a little bent. Let's trim it. That's good. Okay, slide the pearl onto the wire. Look at that. Did you ever think you'd get a pearl on a 21 gauge square wire? All right. And press that down. Now, I have the option. I can lock this in by tying it around one of the sides, or I could just make a rosette at the end. However, because this is a piece I would like to be kept around as an heirloom and is for posterity someday, I'm going to make my wire bend 90 degrees to one side or the other. And let's flip this around, grab the tail with my chain nose pliers, keeping my finger pressing the pearl so that when I roll my tool, there we go again, just roll the tool, it puts the wire where I desire it to go, and I can just hit it with the flat nose pliers. There's no sharp edges, and the pearl is locked in. Okay, let's find another pearl about the same shape. Close enough. Okay, and again, press that down. Use the end wire to make a 90-degree turn. Hold the pearl in place, turn the bracelet over. That's a little long. Okay, I've cut this wire so it's about 3/16 of an inch longer than the wire it's going over. And then use the chain nose pliers to make the curve, do the round, and then use your flat nose pliers to put it into place. The pearls are locked on. It's that easy. You can add crystals, you can do whatever you want. I am now going to use these extra wires, and I think I will twist those. Actually, you know, if you don't want these wires, you can just take the pin vise all the way down to the bottom. Should I do that? Yeah, I think I will. Okay, let me show you something totally different. Okay, I'm gonna make sure that that wire is really, really straight. I'm gonna put my pin vise all the way down here. And tighten it up. And I'm just gonna twist that wire right off. Look at that. it's gone. You can't even tell I had a wire in there. Sometimes you need extra wire for construction, and sometimes you don't. This one works just fine. I needed it in there so I would have an even amount of wires. I'll give you a different way to twist this side. We could actually use our drill for this. Just put the end in and hit it. There we go. Trim it down. So just reviewing how to make a rosette, because I won't be making another one today, using my needle nose, chain nose pliers, of course, flat on the inside, good gripping end, round on the outside so I can make my shape. Grab right onto the very end of that wire, simply roll the tool. See what happens? I get so concentrating. There we go. Roll the tool. Make that itsy bitsy little circle, and then come in on the bottom wire at around 5 o'clock and roll the wire onto itself. Notice that I am true to my word. I am working both hands together, and then press that down. And there you go, okay? You could also do that just with a nice little rosette, just like that. Okay, so there are 2 different ways that you can finish this bracelet, a little more ornate or not so. And let's get our projects and things ready. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, check this out. Look at this. How many of you have a collection of cut loose stones at home? You don't know what to do with them? Well, just think, you just learned how, okay? Awesome. We have 2 examples right here of using a cut stone in the same harness that I just showed you how to make around a cabochon. The only difference is the back. Instead of making the flat back to fit the back side of a cabochon, you will simply reshape that back or inner wire to fit the pavilion of a cut stone, and then rock away, literally, with your cut stones. In addition, even though I showed you a high dome cabochon, here is one that's even higher. This is an antique vintage that I used in an Argentium bracelet. Stunning. Becomes tomorrow's heirloom today. And this is another variation that I made using Argentium with 1420 gold fill and a gold sapphire. Pretty stunning. And let me show you this too. Okay, remember during the directions while I was using the split ring opener to pull the bracelet open, and at one point, one part pulled out really well and the other one was only half done? Look, it's the same shape. What I've done is I added a faceted stone with the same setting, and instead of continuing to make it into a bracelet, I made it a little bit shorter and added chain. So now I have given you several different ways that you can enjoy your loose collection of cut stones and wear them, oh my goodness. Our next project is going to be a little more detailed, very elegant. It's my Anything Cocktail Bracelet. Okay, now the Anything Cocktail Bracelet. First, let me touch base quickly and tell you where this came from. It actually came from my original design called my Anything Cocktail Ring, which I've been making since probably 1997 or 98, and it was actually published on the cover of a magazine in 1999. Later on, I really loved it, and I had people ask, so I made a companion bracelet, which is the Anything Cocktail Bracelet that we're going to be making together today. Now, it's called Anything for several different reasons. It can represent, by the colors you choose, either a sweetheart's anniversary, birthday, mother's, grandmother's, or those are my favorite colors, anything ring. And it also can be made using a variety of techniques: tease, curve, connect, rosette, intertwine, so you can use any type of colors and any type of techniques to come up with this lovely cold filigree project. Thus the Anything, and you can take it from there. Today what I've done is I already have cut and measured and bundled my wires, very similar to what we did with the cabochon that we used in the previous project, the Victorian Bangle. Okay, what I've done here is I have 9 wires, and each one is 4.5 inches long, with 2 of these wires being 5 inches long. And I have placed my 5-inch long wire 3 wires down on one side and 3 wires up on the other side. So they're kind of, again, off center and off kilter from one another. And this is going to be because I'm going to show you how to properly set and lock in a snap set stone, which some of you have been asking me about. Now, in addition to that, I have already made my Anything Cocktail Bracelet. As you'll notice from this design, it is very similar to what we have already made. However, onto this piece, I have used 22 gauge square wire instead of 21. It's a little more delicate, and you need to be able to get the wire through very small hole crystals. So we're going to take this down to a more delicate bracelet using a 22 gauge square half hard. You'll notice I've already pulled my chevron, and I'm not cutting the wires in the center. Those are going to be used as part of the backing. So here we already have 2 differences between this bracelet and the previous. Okay? Finish the same. So I'm going to set that aside and let's get started creating our cocktail segment. Now, the cocktail segment that we're making involves a snap set stone, meaning this is a snap set, okay? A snap set head, this one happens to be 6-prong, one of my favorites, is a little cup that will fit over a cut stone, okay? The nice part about this is it doesn't have any connections to be made into a pendant or to earrings. Therefore, as a wire artist, I can use it anywhere I want, and I'm going to show you how to employ that today. Later on, when you look back at pictures in my gallery and other items that I've done, you'll be able to say, oh yeah, I know how she does that now. So this is just a technique. Right here, I'd like to show you that I have 2 4mm CZ stones already set in 4mm round snap sets, okay? This is an 8mm round snap set with a CZ already in it, which I'm going to show you how to do right now. The easiest way to set snap set stones I have found is to use tape. I'm going to make 2 rolls of tape with the sticky sticking out. I'm going to place one on the table. And I'm going to place the second one on the end of my finger in just a moment. Now, I have kind of made up a few rules about this, only due to experience. You can reuse these snap sets 2 or 3 times before they lose their temper and you have to throw them in the scrap bucket, and seriously, you can't do anything else with them. So I'm going to tell you that for smaller stones, okay, if you're using 3, 4, 5, 6mm stones, it's easiest to put the setting over the stone. However, when doing 8, 9, and 10, I prefer to put the stone into the setting. It's easier to get it centered. And anything larger than a 10mm, well, if I can't make my own setting, I don't need to use it, really. These are just like the perfect larger size to be able to show you on camera. So I'm going to take my stone and place it with the table down, okay? And the pavilion and culet sitting straight up into the air, so it's upside down. Now I'm going to take my second roll of tape and place the snap set on here, okay, on the end of my finger. While it is on my finger, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look dead on and see if all my prongs are in the right position. Sometimes in shipping, they get intertangled with one another and they'll pull out. If something is a little bit askew, I simply push it back. All right, now, I'm going to get down here with my pieces. I'm going to line up this snap set over the top of my stone, and when I press down, hopefully you will hear the snap, which is where it gets its name. But believe me, if you don't hear it, it did happen, okay? Okay, so you see I have this about centered over it, making sure, and I'm gonna press down. Okay, and as you can see, my stone is now in its setting, and when you go to check this, you're going to want to look at the top and make sure that every little prong is sitting on top of the stone, okay? If every prong is not sitting on top of the stone, you might have to go in there with a pair of needle nose, chain nose pliers and kind of push the stone up or down like a fraction of a millimeter, just so it sits where it's supposed to. Okay, so I have these pieces parts ready. I have chosen, along with the Champagne CZs, I've chosen a collection of just lavender beads and pinks and whatever. We might throw something else in there later, some pearls. We'll add some of those. You can add any type of things that you want. You just have to remember that this is a small, tiny, intricate weave called filigree. So do not overcrowd it. Okay, so let's begin. As you can see, I've taken my 22 gauge square wire and made the bundle that we just spoke about. The only difference being between this and the one that we just made is absolutely nothing. I still have used 11/16 of an inch on each side of the center. The only difference that I have made on the bracelet, besides not cutting it, is the fact that the distance from the center to each wrap on the side is 1 inch instead of 1 1/8. This is all written in your written follow-up directions along with the diagram. So let's just watch, listen, and learn. I'm going to take the back of my bundle where the mark is, and again, I'm going to place it on my ring mandrel so that the back is against the size 7. Hold it down so we don't have a cone head. Press equally on each side. When you take it off, the wrap should be across from one another. Okay, exactly the same as what we just did in the Victorian Bangle. You're going to bend 2 circles up, one at a time on each side of this U shape. Okay. We have the beginnings happening here. Once again, we're faced with this irregular oval shape. And now we're going to do the exact same thing we did before, put it on the mandrel, round out the corners, and then we're going to begin by wrapping the first 4 corners in. Once the wraps on your ring thing have been rounded, you're going to remember to take 2 wires at each corner, bend them out, working opposite diagonals, the same as we did before, working with each pair as though it was 1 wire. Now we're going to take all 4 corners out. Then I'm going to return the ring to the mandrel. Okay, this is where things get a little bit different. And I'm going to make this larger first because, all right, we've got this down to a size, we need it at a size 12. All right, now watch this, okay? In order to make a playground for you to fill in with the filigree, you have to form the playground. The larger outside circle should be sitting above the smaller inside circle, which is actually resting against the mandrel. So at this point here, I usually take my fingers or my fingernails and simply spread these out. Actually, it works better on the side without the groove, so I don't get caught. There we go. Okay, I'm going to take this and turn it upside down. Try it again. Right? And there you have the opening that we're going to learn to fill with our filigree and surprise designs. So at each corner, let's remember to use the chain nose and the flat nose. And the cutters, remember not to pull this wire down. All right, we want that up, we want that open. So I'm going to place my chain nose pliers so they are about 1 millimeter above. Let me get that so you can see it, okay? About 1 millimeter above the wire that is just under them, making a nice, easy 90 to the center. You see it sitting right on top of that wire. Let's get this around like a cartwheel center in the middle. Trim it to about 3/16 or an eighth of an inch longer than the wire is going over. Give the wire direction with the chain nose pliers. And then tip the wire in. just like that. Okay, that wrap came out a little bit sideways. I'm just gonna straighten it up a hair. Good deal. Now, I'm going to continue wrapping each pair of wires on the remaining 3/4 in, just as we did before. Okay, after you have locked all 4 corners in, here's where it gets interesting. Okay, yes, this is the time to put it back on the mandrel because we need to draw some of these wires back through the wraps that we made, giving us enough wire to be able to attach this to our bracelet later. So I'm going to take this on here and spin it down, remove it, flip it over because the wires will telescope until I'm around a size 14, 15. That's good. And that still gives me enough wires here to create with. So as we did before, I'm going to use my pen and I'm going to mark on the shank wires of what would be a ring immediately after the wraps. On both sides. So that I don't pull my wires through. Because I need a space to play, I'm going to hold my wraps with my flat nose pliers, and I'm going to bend these center wires back just a little bit. Remember, we still want them to slide possibly later. Okay, snap set time. There is nothing that irritates me more than seeing jewelry of any kind with a snap set setting and stone where the setting has not been properly locked in or wrapped in. The first thing a customer does when they come up to your booth is like, oh, what a pretty stone, and they touch it. How many times do people have to touch that before it's going to become weak? Or possibly they will catch onto one of those little prongs and bend it slightly back that you can't even see. Next thing you know, a stone pops out. You have to replace it. That's not fun. So let's just learn to wrap it in to begin with. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use my longer wires to do so. So I'm first going to fan out all of the wires on each side of my ring. And I have 5 wires on each side with which to play, to decorate. Okay, gonna check my sides, make sure I didn't pull anything through. Right, and let's get this down here. All right, so snap set. I'm going to take one of the longer wires, and I can put something on here because I think I want my stone to be, oh, maybe a third of the way over. So I'm going to use some little tiny beads. Let's get some of these out. It's like preparing a recipe. What do I want to use? These are 2.5 to 3 millimeter large hole, smooth metal beads. I'm going to put a couple of very small, large hole pearls out here too. I might decide to use them. Okay, so in order to keep my shape, I have to keep my finger underneath the ring. You see that? The finger is here, so I'm going to be shaping over it. So I'm going to take this first wire and bend it over, so now it's on the same plane as all my other wires. It's not going to pull down in. And I'm going to put something on here first. So let's add a couple of these small beads. Now, to get my snap set stone on here, I'm going to go ahead and work with the large one first. After you get that down, you should be able to do the others with no challenge. And if you'll notice on the bottom, as I mentioned, we have 6 prongs. Therefore, you have a place where you can stick your wire underneath the stone and through the bottom. So when I do this, let's see, okay, I'm going in one side. Let me get these out of the way. There we go. Okay, I'm going in one side and I'm going to go under 2 prongs. So you see, I went in one side, I'm under 2 prongs, and coming out the other side. I'm going to place this stone up here. Now I have my other longer wire here. There we go. I'm going to bend him down the same as I did before. Might want to put something on that to take up some of the space. You don't have to if you don't want to, though. And now I'm going to slip this wire through the other side of my snap set stone. All right, so I have put the wire, this wire through and underneath those two, and then the wire from the other side underneath the opposite two on the opposite side. Then we just have to slide the wires through until the stone goes down to where you want it to be within the topping for your bracelet. Okay, so if I want mine to be right about there, I am dead on. Now, to properly lock this stone in, I'm going to have to wrap another wire around it. One of the reasons why I chose to use 2 wires through the same stone is so I can use the shorter wire to wrap around the stone. And I'm going to give this a little bit of a twist. The twisted wire will have a chance to grab the prongs on the stone a little more tightly. Okay, so now I'm going to take my wire and bend it completely around the stone underneath the girdle of the stone. Let me do this with tools so you can see it. Okay, just underneath the girdle of the stone, all the way around to a connection zone. Now the connection zone for anything that I'm doing can be anywhere except the flush ring. The 2 flush rings were the 2 wires that you pulled in that are the smaller wires. They are the ones that are going to sit against the finger. So we don't want to make any connections on the flush ring. You can connect to other wires, you can connect to the top or the bottom, which is the actual shape of the frame, but you never connect to a flush ring. So let's just put this one here. Now the tease curve and connect comes in here. We did part of this with the bracelet connections to put the hook and eye on. Using my chain nose plier, I'm going to grab onto the end of the wire. Okay, I'm going to roll my tool to make a connection, open it up slightly, so I have this little hook, and then put that hook over the edge of the ring thing. And then, you see how it's just over there? Okay, and then I'm going to crimp it there, because that's exactly where I want it. So it's curve, which I did, tease it to where I want to go, and then connect it to the wire. And that is now locked in. That stone's not going anywhere. Okay, it's pretty solid. So what I can do now is I can add other things to these wires using the tease, curve, and connect method. I'm going to talk about them as I go, and sometimes I'm not going to talk and just watch because I have no idea what I'm doing with this until it happens, which I'm sure you, as an advanced student, know. Okay, so let me do a twisted filigree here. I'm going to put the end into my pin vise. And let's make this tight. Notice I'm holding everything over here on the wraps, keeping my eye on my marks. And that's about as twisted as I want that to be. Okay, here's a little secret. I'm going to be using my round nose and my chain nose pliers because I know where I want something to be. So if I want a loop to be in that direction, I'm going to put my round nose pliers where I want to form the hook or the loop. I'm going to twist it slightly to get it started. I'm going to hold the space I need with my tool and use my finger to complete the shape. So if I let go of the tool, you can see that little shape. Now, if I want to place it somewhere, all I have to do is use my flat nose pliers to make it flat, and then continue the curve by holding the shape in place, using my finger to bring that up. And you see how that filigree is starting to appear? All right? Now I might add a little bead to that just for grins. Let's see if this little tiny bead wants to play on this wire. Okay, now tease, curve, and connect up here. At the very end with my chain nose pliers, I'm going to make my hook. It's going exactly where I want it to, right over the edge. So I'm going to put it there with my flat nose pliers, which is the connection. And we have just put this piece to bed. Okay, so let's continue on. I'm going to be doing some more filigree. I'm going to be adding some more beads and pearls. If you run out of wire, the cool thing about this is the wires that we cut when we were making our connections on the side to lock it in, you could actually twist those, add things to them, and connect them from one side to the other. You can add more beads and things to this and make it as crazy, confused, or full as you would like by adding additional wires to this design. And even though I said don't connect to the flesh ring, it's because I don't want you to get into the habit. This is not a ring. All right, you might say, oh, Dale, I know how to make your ring. Well, that's fine, but you need to use the proper formulas because this is not going to fit somebody with like a size 5 finger. So keep that in mind. A lot of my books and things have ring formulas in them, but you can certainly adapt this to a ring design if you would like. Okay, making my last connection here. This is really kind of cool. I just kind of get involved in things. I've got a song playing in the back of my head, and I just let it kind of flow as it's going to go because I really don't know what they're going to look like until I'm done with them. So it's kind of impossible to do a custom order without just knowing colors. All right, so now that this is finished, let's do the same similar thing as we did before. I'm going to cut this in the back. I'm going to spread it out, and all of a sudden it becomes quite a lot larger than what you had thought you were working on. Okay? Very similar to what we did before, go ahead and separate 2 wires on each of the 4 corners, which with this pattern, I've left you 1 wire in the center. Okay, so very similar to the little bug I did before, now I've got a crystal bug. And because our bracelet is made a little bit different, you'll notice that because of this filigree, it kind of feels a little weak, and that's why I leave the center wire in here to make my connections. And look at that, that's about the exact right size. So I'm going to show you how we're going to make our connections, which is kind of a review of before. I'm going to show you a couple of different design variations, and I have to tell you, this is really kind of special for you, for Jewel School, because I have never taught this bracelet to anybody. Never, never. This is a Dale Cougar thing. It's a signature piece, and I've never taught it. So you guys are the absolute first. Well, actually, the people in the studio are the first, but yeah, I don't know if I can do anything with it or not. So this is kind of an exclusive. And if you remember correctly from before, or if you skipped ahead and you didn't listen, and you went ahead and just chose the bracelet that you liked first, okay. I will center my centerpiece on top of my bracelet. Make sure my legs are kind of all the same. I'm going to mark on my legs where they're crossing over and where I'm going to need to make my bends. I also mark either outside or inside on my frame. So I know where I'm going with this when I go to put it together again. Okay, so I have all my marks, and just going to review really quickly what you're going to do besides chasing beads. Using chain nose pliers because they have a nice soft angle. I'm going to place the bottom edge of my tool so it's about 1/2 millimeter away from the mark where I want to make my bend. And I'm going to just make a nice 90. I'm going to do that on each of the 4 corners at each of those locations. Okay, then place your little crystal bug onto your bangle. Now, while I'm here and I'm ready to go, I'm going to have to cut these a little bit because there's no way that they're going to fit all of them between those wires without cutting them. I'm going to use my chain nose pliers to give my wire ends direction by curving them so that they're going to head through the hole I need them to go through. And we'll do this again from the back side so you can see better. And working opposite diagonals seems to be the trick to keeping things centered. And I guess I'm cutting those off so they're about 1/2 inch long. Let me double check. Yeah, they're right at 1/2 inch long. Now, on the back side, you're going to be able to more clearly see what I was doing, and then I'm going to show you how to finish up the edges. It's a little different on this one because we do not have the open space that we did on the other. However, I had to show you both different styles or you wouldn't know what kind of stone to set on what kind of a bracelet. So again, we're going to trim those so that they're about 1/2 inch long. I'm going to use my chain nose pliers to give them direction. The direction meaning I want you to go through that little space right there. And when they do, grab them and pull them through. After they've all gone through, go ahead and get them around to the back. Do a quick little trim. And press them down so that they all stay in the same place. There we go. And then again, on the top, we have some extra things here. You can attach crystals, you can attach pearls. I'm gonna look at this one and say, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna put pearls on there, okay? I'm a pearl girl, what can I say? Just a couple little pearls. Give it a tad. By the way, I usually don't like to use bicones on this type of a design because bicones have sharp edges and those edges stick out beyond the bead itself, and they're really sharp in their glass, so they can break really easily and then cut you or your companion without even knowing what's going on. So please be careful when you choose the beads, crystals, and/or pearls that you use. Yeah, I think that kind of dresses it up nice. Because we have such a long wire length here, you can actually take this back in the same as we did before and wrap it in and under and around and locking it in place. The same as we have done. Okay, and the topping for the cocktail bracelet, or at least the one I have made, is now complete. Again, you see how it's kind of like this really wonderful mirage of colors and gemstones and anything? You can use anything in this. I think this one came out pretty cool. All right, so to shape this kind of a bracelet, because we do have so many cut stones and things in there, it's kind of hard to use something like this because you want to use a mallet. So I really do find that my little found item is pretty efficient. Again, I'm going to hold on to the wrap right here. I'm just going to hold on to the wrap on the other side of my bracelet, and I'm just going to give it a curve almost to the center. Okay? Just that. So similar to what we did before, but it's a little different because the bracelet connection goes all the way underneath the center. So again, hold on to that end and hold on to the second wrap and just go around. Okay. I mean, we're almost done now. Look at that. And you see the arch is still there that we put in by making that piece. So I'm just going to use my fingers as we did before, only down to the wrap on each side because this already has the curve, which represents the top of the arm without a problem. Put this side in. Connect them when you can. And then really you can like tug on these things and get them to where you want them to be. Okay, the final touch is to use your flat nose pliers on each side set of wraps. Just give it a slight twist in, adding a curve to an otherwise straight part of the bracelet. There we go, ta-da, it's done. Okay, let me show you a couple of other things that you can do with this design simply by using the variations that we have changed from one bracelet to another. Okay, this one uses the technique of how to set a snap set stone and to lock it in place for a family or whatever bracelet. All I did was I used 3 pieces of wire, attached my snap set stones with half round wire, making a wrap, going around the stone, crossing over on the back, and so on to the other end. I then inserted this into the same type of bracelet we just made. Very simple, very elegant. Another idea here, if you notice now, the sample bracelet that I came in with is not the same as the one that we made because sometimes I don't put snap set stones into my designs. It really depends on what you want to do. If you want, you can add extra beads to the sides. You're totally on your own now. It's up to you to use the techniques that I've shown you to create your own designs. So, take what I've given you and go get twisted.
For more information about the supplies and techniques used, visit jewelschool.com. And if you have a question or a challenge, just send me an email, dale@jtv.com.
I hope that you've had as good a time today in class as I have. And now that you know the techniques, it's time for you to take your collection of gemstones out of storage and begin using them to make really lovely jewelry. Have fun experimenting and playing with them, and I will see you here next time in Jewel School.